And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
I often give games grief about their boring-looking box covers, so I have to give props when there's a box cover that just catches my eyes. I don't know what it is, but this one just really snaps, this little Castles box. Unfortunately named, because when you search for games called Castles, there's a lot of games called Castles, or have the word Castles in them. But this is a strategic card game, and not only did the box catch my eye, but the card backings, and the artwork has this old-timey, medieval artwork look to them, which sometimes I don't like in games, but in this one it really comes together well. So this game looks pretty cool. Let's take a look at how it plays. In this game, to win, you have to have basically these cards placed in front of you. You need a castle, a wife, and heir. You need a general, champion, and arms. You need 3 different nobles, a duke, baron, and a count. Each of those nobles needs to have lands, fruits, and serfs underneath them. You'll notice there's values on the cards, and I'll talk a little bit about more of those in a bit, but they don't have any value to who wins the game. First person to get this done wins. There are other cards that you can have, wizards and minions and magic cards, but these cards, while you can use them over the course of the game, don't matter to whether or not you win or not. So what players are going to do is there's going to be a stack of cards that you're going to be drawing from on your turn. And this stack of cards, first, what each player will do is they will draw one card to determine who goes first. So what players are going to do is that when they first draw these cards, you're basically going to see whoever has the higher number is going to go first. So on your turn, essentially the way the game works is, usually what you'll do for your action is you'll draw the top card of the pile and add it to in front of you in the proper space. So if I draw a general, I can place a general here. If I got lands, I can't put out lands yet because I have no nobles, so this would be discarded. The next card I draw is another general, so I can put them on top of this general, and I have a better general. You can take an action to take a card from the top of a stack or on the bottom of a stack and put it on the top if you would like to. Here now I've drawn a duke, and so on. Now, what you can do is on your turn, at the end of your turn, you can say, I'm blocking. So my minion can block. Actually, he has magic, so he can block there. I can say blocking for 15. So you draw a card. Your card is greater than 15. So my people who are blocking are gone. Had the card you drawn been 15 exactly, like this one, then you wouldn't have drawn that card, and the cards I was blocking with were gone. But if I had drawn a card that was less than 15, let's say, for example, I had drawn these serfs for only 5, I would discard those and my turn would be over. As the game progresses, you can block with either your minions or you can block with a champion, and if the champion has arms, you can add those arms to him. So here I might say, I'm blocking for 30, and you turn over your top card, 10, nothing for you. Next time I say, I'm blocking for 30 again. You drew a wife, ha 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 ha, nothing for you. And I can keep doing that, but eventually it's going to come back to bite me because I'm going to draw a card that's 30 or higher. Now, heirs and a wife. When you draw a wife, you can't put out a wife until you have a castle, a place for her to live. So you need to get that castle out first. Once you have the castle, you can then play a wife card next to the castle card. And you can't play heirs until you have a wife, although you can have multiple heirs if you like to, in case some of them die. Now, once you have a castle, it's harder for people to block you, because if they block you, let's say I block you, and I block you with this minion of magic, and I say I'm blocking for 30, and you draw a card that's 50. Now, that means obviously I lose both this minion and this magic card, but also I will make you lose 20 points worth more of things. You can also on your turn simply attack your opponent once you have a general, champion, and arms and a castle, you say, okay, I'm going to attack you, and this is how many points of damage they're going to have to pull off of their board. And this is done by pulling stuff from the outside edges. It's called danglers, cards that are closer to the edge. There's also wizard cards that are in the game, and once you have a castle, your opponent cannot block you with minions and magic unless you also have a wizard card in play. Now, wizard cards are useful for a couple other things. You can sacrifice a a wizard to draw 2 cards rather than just 1. Or if there's a special ability, like if I have a warlock, I can sacrifice him to stop you from blocking me. If I have a witch card, I can play this to put a card in the right column without skipping it. It's kind of convoluted. And if I have this, if I play the mage card, I can draw the topmost card from the discard pile, and you can't block that play. And there's other ones too. There's different things, like for example, here's an adept. I can block you from moving one card from a column to another card in that column. Whatever. So essentially, you're going to keep going till everybody, one of the players, has drawn it. There's actually, if you go to the Kickstarter page for this game, there is actually a video where you can watch an entire game. A guy plays both sides and draws top cards. You can see how a game plays out in all its glory. Now, obviously, from going over that, you can see that I'm not a huge fan of this. When I read the rules for this game, which aren't that well written, they don't tell you how to play the game until like halfway through. The first, I was like, how do you play? How do you set up? I mean, a game should say setup, and this one does not. And I can tell you, setups just make a big stack of cards. But that would have been useful knowledge to have. So anyhow, I went online and watched how to play. And as I was watching and looking at these rules, I was kind of in stunned belief saying, what is this? I mean, essentially, this is a variation of the most generic, boring game in existence called War. Now, this isn't exactly like that, but what you are doing for this game is drawing a card and playing it. That is it. Now, you say, oh, there's that blocking thing. Are you kidding me? Are you really kidding me? I don't know who I'm arguing with here. But that blocking thing, you're saying, okay, I got 25. I don't know what the distribution of numbers in this deck, but I know that they go like as high as, I think there's one that goes up to 70. There's at least, they at least go up to 60. And you don't know what cards are going to be drawn. And by the way, if I do have a high blocking, let's say I can block for 40. Isn't that fun? If I say block for 40, you draw a card, can't play it. So then I do my turn. I'm like, I'm going to block for 40 again. I mean, isn't that fun for the other player? I'll give you a clue. It's not. So you're like, oh, but the blocking person is in danger of losing their own cards. So what? I mean, the game is kind of bland without that. So why not block other people? So the way the game plays out, and I've played this, so I know. It's like, oh, look, I'm building up this stuff, and I'm going to block you, and you got nothing, and oh, suddenly something goes wrong, and now you're building up something, but we're not doing anything. We're watching the gameplay as we draw these cards. Even the big attack someone else and make them lose cards is such kind of a randomized thing. You're never quite sure. Sure, you can take them out, but then maybe next turn they're going to draw a card that's better. You need those castles. They're really important. And if you don't draw one, which can happen, it's really frustrating. This game is just an exercise of really cool looking game design. And I really thought it would be a good game, but it's just not well designed. It's just the game playing and you're kind of along for the ride. I cannot recommend this one, and I cannot imagine many people are going to enjoy it.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.
Yeah?